Again, thank you all for dropping your name and where you're from in the chat. We love to see all the wonderful folks that are here and present from all across the state of Florida and then across the country even. Again, thank you for finding the time to spend this evening learning about trash, and incineration in Florida. My name is Mackenzie. I want to introduce myself. My name is Mackenzie Marsland. I'm the Climate Justice Director for Florida Rising, and I will be your moderator for today. Surprisingly, this is my first time moderating, so please have some grace for me. But I'm sure it'll be a fun ride for us all. Yeah, we'll have a good time. We'll hear from some speakers. We'll learn some things, and yeah, we'll be better off for it at the end of this series. So again, I want to thank you again for being a part of this. This is the final of a three-part series called "The Fight Against Incineration in Florida." Also want to say for those that are here from Climate Reality Chapter, North Broward and Palm Beach Chapter, thank you for coming. This is also your monthly meeting. I appreciate y'all's attendance as well. So like I said, this webinar is the third in a three-part series about the solid waste crisis facing Florida and other states. Elected officials have been speaking out against having waste to energy facilities or incinerators near their communities. This webinar will give us the tools to change that conversation from NIMBY, which is not in my backyard, to nowhere or nope, not on this planet Earth when it comes to incineration. The first webinar focused on the dangers of incineration. The second webinar focused on the benefits of zero waste. And in this webinar, we'll hear from leaders who are taking action to prevent the expansion of incineration in Florida. You do not need to have been a part of the first or the second webinar series to participate in this third one. But if you are interested in the first two webinars and want to learn more and have a better understanding of what we're talking about, we'll be able to drop recordings and share the presentations with you at the end of this presentation in our follow-up email. And if you've attended either of the first two webinars, you can use the same link to watch this third one as well. And so, yeah, you'll have a recording for this one as well. Yeah, so we'll before I get started, I wanted to, this event was brought to through a collaborative process with multiple groups and organizations putting this together. They have it listed here. So we have Floridians Against Dirty Energy. We have Earth Ethics, GAIA, ReThink Energy Florida, Florida Rising, Broward Clean Air, and like I mentioned earlier, Climate Reality, North Broward and Palm Beach chapters. So today we have an incredible lineup of speakers and experts in this area who will take 10 to 12 minutes of their time to share a presentation and just talk about the work that they've been doing. I'll properly introduce them before they speak. But I just want to shout their names out now. You'll see it on the slide right here. We have Brandy Deason with Climate Justice Coordinator from the Houston Air Alliance. We have Emma Rimmer, who is with Earth Justice. She's the Litigation and Legal Practice Assistant. We have Richard Ramchatar, sorry. Who is the founder and director of Broward Clean Air and an awesome ally that I've been working with in Broward County as well. Sorry for butchering your name as well, Richard. You're a great person.
That's okay.
So yeah, like I said, I'll have the speakers present. their portion. And then after that, we'll have an action for you all, for everyone to participate in. We want everyone to learn about what's going on in Florida, about the waste crisis going on, learn about incineration. But we also want to encourage everyone to take action. So we'll have some time for you all to do that, and put those values and those words to action. And then after that, we'll have a 15-minute Q&A for our speakers. And so you'll be able to have the opportunity to ask any questions. So please, take notes of each speakers. If you have a particular question for them, we can save it for that time period after. And so yeah. After that, we will that'll be it. And hopefully, like we said, this is a 3-part series. But ultimately, the goal for this is to continue having these conversations, continue taking action beyond on these series. So hopefully, this isn't the last that we hear and see all your wonderful faces and names in the audience. So yeah. With that being said, I think we can go ahead and get started with our first speaker. Like I said, this is Brandy Deason, the climate justice coordinator at Houston Air Alliance. As a climate justice coordinator, Brandy is responsible for engaging the community and its representatives in the interest of environmental justice principles, to empower the community to act against the toxic emissions and false solutions of the chemical recycling of plastics. Brandy received her bachelor's of science in biological and physical sciences from the University of Houston, downtown, with a focus on environmental sciences, sustainability, ethics, communications, and U.S. history. Wow, that is a lot. Props to you, Brandy. While receiving her education, she was selected as a sustained scholar through a program granted by the USDA to solve a sustainability problem with an interdisciplinary team. She has since worked as an air analyst in the environmental lab industry. And with that being said, Brandy, you are up. You are up next. Yeah, we'll like I said, please listen intently. If you have any questions, write them down, and we'll have them for that Q&A section. And so I will pass it on to you, Brandy.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mackenzie, for that wonderful introduction. So as Mackenzie said, I'm a climate justice coordinator for an organization called Air Alliance Houston. We work in the greater Houston area, so in all the cities just surrounding us as well. And we believe everyone deserves to breathe clean air, simply. We work with communities that face a myriad of challenges, health problems, and dangers due to the processing, production, and waste disposal of the plastics industry. Those areas are predominantly Black and Brown people or people of lower income due to historical redlining real estate practices and low real estate prices that allow polluters to congregate. The concerns are so grave now that we've formed a local coalition just focused on the impacts of plastic pollution, which I lead. So chemical, advanced, and molecular recycling are marketing terms for a suite of processes that heats plastic and chemicals to break it down into raw components to be used to make other plastics or mainly fuel. It is essentially plastic burning, and the process emits CO2 and multiple air toxics. This process has not been shown to actually reduce single-use plastics, but is being widely promoted by the petrochemical industry as a solution to plastic waste. We are particularly alarmed about the following facilities. We have ExxonMobil in Baytown, Texas, the proposed 245 recycle facility somewhere on the Gulf Coast of Texas, and multiple sustainable aviation fuel facilities proposed in Galena Park, Texas. Additionally, we're concerned about a memorandum of understanding executed in 2022 between the City of Houston and industry being ExxonMobil, LyondellBasell, Cyclics International, and FCC Environmental Services. This established an initiative called the Houston Recycling Collaboration that claims it will, quote, significantly increase Houston's plastic recycling rate and help establish the city as a leader for both mechanical and advanced recycling processes. The so-called advanced recycling technology is concerning because it's not proven or effective. In June, the United States EPA recommitted themselves to requiring strict enforcement of Section 129 of the Clean Air Act, governing new source performance standards and emissions guidelines for solid waste incineration units. Yet there is no indication that the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality will require the existing or proposed plastic burning facilities in our state to meet the requirements of the Clean Air Act. As a resident of Houston, I can attest to the near constant apprehension we live under. The sight and scent of flares, along with the sound of alarms from the plants, serve as ominous reminders of potential leaks, explosions, or fires. Alarmingly, we encounter a chemical-related incident approximately every 6 weeks. It's a sobering reality that for the majority, the next incident is not a question of if, but when. The plastics industry, regrettably, has proven to be a frequent contributor to these calamities. Take, for example, LyondellBasell in East Harris County. Between October 2020 and September 2023, this plastic production plant had 6 Clean Air Act enforcement actions taken against them and paid what would amount to pocket change relative to their earnings. They promised to be good neighbors and good stewards of the environment, but their enforcement records show otherwise. ExxonMobil has a documented history of claiming to the public they have the recycling answer to the plastic problem, while knowing internally that plastic recycling is a lie. As recently as this year, they asked Houstonians to drop off their mixed recyclables for advanced recycling at the ExxonMobil facility, only to find out through Apple Tag trackers that the plastics went to an open dump and were not, in fact, chemically recycled. They are still sitting in the dump. ExxonMobil has themselves recently admitted that they're not meeting the amount of tons per year of plastic waste recycling through advanced technology as they had hoped. 2 of the companies listed in the City of Houston's HRC MOU, so the Houston Recycling Collaborative, Memorandum of Understanding, LyondellBasell and ExxonMobil are some of our area's top polluters, and they're known for breaking pollution laws while they take tax subsidies from communities that would otherwise use the money for education, police and fire, and infrastructure. As a result of these and other polluting facilities, specific neighborhoods on the fence line face imminent danger and lifespans 20 years shorter than their affluent counterparts. In addition, Houston as a whole struggles with air pollution issues that have not been resolved for decades. As an example, we have continued non-compliance with federal ozone standards and are now in severe non-attainment status. The amount of greenhouse gases emitted in this area are of particular concern given the severity of the risks we face due to climate change. Tax breaks and subsidies handed out to these polluting industries artificially lower the price for virgin plastics and could be the very money needed to prepare or repair infrastructure in the event of a climate-driven natural disaster. We've been trying to meet with the city. We've met with the solid waste department once, and these are our asks. We have more meetings set up, more actions. So we want them to cancel the MOU and stop sending plastic waste to Exxon, is where they say it goes. It's not. We want them to adopt a pay-as-you-throw garbage fee. Most cities have those, but we do not. And our solid waste management is a shortfall on the budget. So levying fees for household waste production incentivizes people to be more mindful of how much they throw away, reducing waste generation by hundreds of pounds per household each year. We're also asking that we reduce plastic pollution by leading by example. The city should phase out the use of single-use plastics, such as plastic water bottles, at city property and events. The reason why we can't do city bans is that we had some prior to 2018, and our Attorney General took those 11 cities to court, and the Texas Supreme Court ruled that we could not ban the single-use plastic bags. So we have some challenges here when it comes to zero waste. That's why we're asking the city to lead by example versus trying to propose a bill at the moment. We're asking them invest in scaled up mechanical recycling. This method emits less air pollution than chemical recycling and could still be an option for legacy refineries seeking a next phase for their plants and their workers. And at a minimum, the city should come clean to Houstonians about what the Houston Recycling Collaborative actually is and stop advertising a blatantly false all plastics recycling to taxpayers. Thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Brandy. Like I said, if you have any questions that you'd like answered, please drop in the chat. And yeah, if you want to give a round of applause to Brandy, you know, through your reactions, please do show some love to her. All right. Next up is Emma Rimmer. She is the litigation and legal practice assistant at Earth Justice. Ooh, go Earth Justice. Emma is a legal support professional at Earth Justice, a nonprofit public interest environmental law organization. Emma supports Earth Justice Florida regional office in their litigation and advocacy efforts around Florida's waterways, biodiversity, and the health of communities that are disproportionately burdened by pollution. Recently, she's been engaged in Earth Justice and Florida Rising fight against waste incineration in Miami-Dade County. With a background in sociology and earth science, Emma is particularly interested in the intersection between scientific research, policy, and social justice. And yeah, just want to give a special shout out. Emma Rimmer, she's been great working with, and so you know, love to hear what you have to say. So I will pass it along to you, Emma.
Thank you for that warm welcome, Mackenzie. Give me a second. I'm going to try to share my screen correctly, which is always a good challenge. All right, let me know if everything looks all right on your end.
Looks good.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay. Yeah, as Mackenzie mentioned, my name is Emma Rimmer and I work for Earth Justice. And today I'll be talking about this joint report that Earth Justice and Florida Rising put out together that outlines the health risks and hazards that followed the waste incinerator fire that occurred in Doral, Florida last year in February. This report cited its information from a public records request to Miami-Dade County, as well as some publicly available databases that were posted on the Miami-Dade County website. Trying to go to the next slide. There we go. Quick summary of what I'll be talking about today and what's in the report is the air pollution that we looked at, some water quality monitoring that was done by the contracting company, the concern about the presence of asbestos in the old structure, and the general history of fires at the facility, with the undercurrent of no community should have to withstand this. When we talk about where to site incinerators, it should be focusing nowhere should have incinerators. So what happened? Before I get into that, I want to preface this by saying Doral is an environmental justice community. It's a Latinx community with over 80% of the population being Spanish speakers. So when we have the conversation of waste incinerators being primarily cited in environmental justice communities or overburdened populations, this is no exception to that. So with that added context, let's get into the cause. On February 12th, refuse-derived fuel, or just processed waste, caught fire on one of the conveyor belts in the garbage processing unit and spread fire to the rest of the garbage processing pit. What followed was a nearly 3 weeks long fire As you can tell from the pictures on the right, that is the building with the garbage pit. It completely collapsed in on itself. The roof collapsed, the eastern and southern walls collapsed. And it was almost 3 weeks of a fire, and the residents had to endure smoky conditions for days on end, with associated health impacts. One thing I want to mention that was on the previous slide of that history of fires, this was the 5th fire in 4 years at the time, so now we're at 5 years. But the point being is that one of those fires was caused by the very same mechanism that this was caused. And while this was certainly a more major event than any of the other preceding fires, when we talk about a waste fire being the worst case scenario, and it is, it's not an unforeseen one. So that should really be considered in the conversation as well. So during the fire, the county did maintain a hotline that residents could call into with any symptoms or concerns that they were experiencing. And in the reports, we saw reports of residents experiencing eye, nose, and throat irritation and discomfort, hoarse voice, discomfort there, skin conditions and rashes, and some family members who called in concerned about either younger members or elderly members, some with neurological conditions, others concerned about their lungs and asthma, and just a whole host of experiences and complaints. One thing worth noting is that on February 16th, as we saw in the records, they were receiving so many calls to this hotline that they were actually unable to process them all, and the employee logged out mid-afternoon, stopping reporting those complaints. So even though we have all of these, all of these complaints that we have access to, this is just a snapshot of what the community of Doral was experiencing at this time, which is very troubling, of course. I mentioned there was a concern of asbestos. So this building, originally started operating in 1985, so it might not be surprising that the building was lined with asbestos in the roof and siding. Early on, when the fire caught, it was determined that there would need to be demolition so that the firefighters could even access it in the first place. So with that came the discovery and concern of asbestos being released into the air or improperly managed. I'm sure you're familiar, but in case you're not, asbestos is a fibrous mineral that can get trapped in your lungs, breathed in, may cause cancer of the larynx, throat, and ovaries, and of course has a mesothelioma risk as well. While I do want to emphasize that we don't have reports of asbestos being in unhealthy concentrations in this case, that was the concern with it being released into the air. And what we did find was that the asbestos containing or contaminated materials, which was the steel of the structure, was initially improperly shipped off to be recycled at a metal recycling facility. Later, the rest of the materials were sent to the landfill, local landfill, Medley landfill, but they were initially improperly managed, which is just important to flag as well. Now we're going to get into the bulk of the findings, which constitutes air pollution that was found during our records review. During the fire, EPA initially set out to do this air monitoring, but eventually was taken over by a contracting company called CTEH. And they looked at data at 4 on-site locations at the incinerator and 9 throughout the Doral community. We looked at around 3 weeks worth of data, and what we found was that at various instances in that data observation period, various chemicals were observed at levels deemed unsafe for human exposure by the EPA regional coordinator. Those contaminants included particulate matter 2.5 or soot, chlorine gas, volatile organic compounds, carbon monoxide, and hydrogen cyanide. Individually, those chemicals, as I listed here, can cause asthma, breathing conditions, skin and eye conditions, dizziness, nausea, and can cause serious harm to your organs over time. While we did have action levels for each of these contaminants, we had a more detailed action level laid out in the reports for PM 2.5, and this was again established by the local EPA coordinator. And can you see my cursor, or am I just going to explain? Yes, you can. Wonderful. So we would go through the data and look at either these 1 hour averages or 24-hour averages and look at what that means for the health concern and appropriate action plan. Particulate matter 2.5, as you can see here, it's these tiny, tiny particles that can get breathed in and cause those cardiopulmonary complications, and it's also been associated with low birth rates and a whole host of health risks, but they're smaller than 2.5 microns in diameter, so extremely tiny. And what we found, and I've highlighted them here, this is not how it originally came, was that the particulate matter concentrations in the data set ranged from unhealthy for sensitive groups all the way to hazardous. And so, you know, that these are conditions that the community and those who are nearby are being exposed to during the events of the fire. Why this is so concerning, other than just the face value matter of it all, is that the early reports being issued to the community were that air quality was not a concern, environmental impacts were not being reported, and that those with existing respiratory conditions were encouraged to stay inside. Again, those were the very early reports, but still, when we looked at the data, we saw as early as February 15th, those 24-hour data periods, so over the entire day, was already hitting those unhealthy levels. And if you go back to the chart, you'll notice that that's everyone may begin to experience health effects, not just those sensitive groups. And that's as early as February 15th. So we're really concerned with that public messaging and just the risk awareness to the surrounding community. There were a couple of data points for hazardous and very unhealthy as well, although those were on site at the facility and not in the community. But outside of the data period averages as well, we saw high spikes in the data, or like certain instances where the concentrations were extremely high, but were not prolonged over an hour or a day's worth of time. While there are not health thresholds established for spikes in particulate matter, there is no safe exposure minimum for particulate matter. It's always unsafe, so it's troubling to see such high spikes as high as exceeding 2,000 micrograms per cubic meter in that data set. Really quickly, there was water quality monitoring done on site as well. However, this was done in retention ponds on site, which release to the wastewater treatment plant. So these are not drinking water sources, but of course can have environmental impacts as well. So the contaminants found in high quantities and high concentrations were copper, lead, zinc, sulfates, and boron. No soil sampling was done on site because it was determined that they might not be sure if they could attribute it to the fire or if it was worth doing in the first place. All of this is to say, no one should have to endure a risk like this in their community. Again, this is the worst case scenario with an incinerator, but it's not an unforeseeable one. It's not out of the question. These things do happen. So all of this supports you know, rethinking, redesigning our waste strategy, which should prioritize zero waste. And if you are interested in checking out the report that I talked about today, you can use this QR code for the English version or the Spanish version. You can also just Google search Earth Justice, Florida Rising, Doral Incinerator Fire, and it should come up. Or I'd be happy to send you a copy if you're interested as well. So thank you again, and I'll be around for any questions should they arise.
Awesome. Thank you, Emma, for that detailed report back from the report. Please, I encourage you all to read that, you know, not just having that bias that Florida Rising has also contributed to that, but it is a really good report put together by really great people. And yeah, and yeah, that fire was pretty devastating, and a lot of the community members, you know, we're saying what would happen, and unfortunately it did end up happening. And so We want to make sure that we have a better understanding of what's happening in that report. And yeah, I think Marcel dropped it in the chat. So like Covanta Energy is no longer Covanta, and now they have rebranded to Reworld. So if you see them out there, Covanta is still around. They just rebranded their name. So that's interesting. But again, thank you so much, Emma. We appreciate you. We're gonna pass this next presentation or this speaker on to Richard Ramcharatar, who is the founder and director at Broward Clean Air. Richard is the founder. He's the founder and director of Broward Clean Air, a grassroots community project initiative that opposes Broward, Miami-Dade, and Palm Beach counties policies on solid waste management since early June 2023. The grassroots community initiative grew quickly out of watchdog activities, which started earlier that year when Richard discovered through research and a collaborative review of the interlocal agreement for solid waste disposal and recyclable materials processing authority of Broward County. Wow, that is a long name. That were considerations to build multiple new waste to energy trash burning incinerators in Broward County near communities and the Florida Everglades and environmentally sensitive wetland ecosystem. Like I said, Richard's been a amazing and active person in the South Florida scene, preventing waste to energy from entering in our communities. And I'm proud to say he's an ally and a person that I've worked with who has a foundation of knowledge and energy. And so, yeah, with that being said, I will pass it along to you, Richard. And yeah, we'd love to hear what you have to say.
Okay, good evening, everyone, and we want to thank everyone for coming out this evening and listening to us. This is the third webinar in our series, and I'd like to introduce you to myself. I have been involved in this since June of 2023, and probably a few months before, as Mackenzie mentioned. Broward Clean Air is a grassroots project. It was initiated to educate, organize a grassroots effort to oppose proposed trash incinerators in South Florida. We learned about the consideration to build up to 3 or 4 waste-to-energy plants in Broward County by attending town council meetings between March to August 2023. Next slide. Susan.
I
Susan?
am trying. This is
Oh.
the technical glitch we had earlier. Let's see if we can get it to advance. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
I'm gonna stop sharing for a moment, reshare.
So I'll go ahead and speak while you're trying to do that. You know, we have millions of people that rely on the Florida Everglades and underground aquifers for our potable water supply for drinking and daily needs. We have farm animal, livestock in West Broward that rely on well water. We have residents that own horses, plant nurseries, fruit trees, and vegetable gardens, ranging in different sizes, and they fall under the Florida's Right to Farm Act. And we also have the agriculture classification of lands out here in West Broward as well. That is administered by the Broward County Property Appraiser's Office. We have the Broward County Environmental Protection and Growth Management Department, the Resilient Environment Department, that conducts wetland jurisdictional determinations and is responsible along with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection to regulate and protect wetlands. You know, it costs when developers want to build over wetlands. The cost is right now about $350,000 per wetland acre. So the proposals that we have to build over our wetlands here in West Broward, it's going to be quite expensive. And it is going to harm the wetland ecosystems that we have here and deplete our inventory of wetlands as well. So the Broward Clean Air is a member of or affiliated with all of these associations. Next. So just to give you some insight of the demographics, and the population in Broward County is almost 2 million people and growing. The population of Florida is 22 million and growing. And where I am in Southwest Ranches, it's about 8,000 people. Next. Okay, so the municipal solid waste and recycling in Florida. In 2008, the Florida legislature put out a very ambitious plan for recycling and required that we reach 75% recycling. In 2012, Broward County was on track to meet the state's goal and boasted a 60% recycling rate. In 2016, that dropped sharply to about 34%. And we have to do something about that now and fix that problem. So what happened is that in June of 2017, the county, in accordance with numerous county municipalities, retained Arcadis, US Inc., Kessler Consulting, Total Municipal Solutions, and GMAC Consulting. Collectively, they were called the Arcadis team to conduct the study. And they entered into the county and participating municipalities entered into a memorandum of understanding regarding collaborative study and subsequent development of an integrated solid waste and recycling system. In December of 2018, the Arcadis team concluded the study and issued its solid waste and recycling issue study final report, and the final report summarized the Arcadis team's findings and recommendations. The county and participating municipalities decided to formalize their shared and ongoing commitment to work together in establishing and implementing a regional solid waste management system that addresses the short and long-term opportunities and challenges associated with providing solid waste disposal and recyclables processing services to their respective constituents. In my town, our town council passed and adopted the resolution in August of 2019. So the county, working with the participating municipalities, procured the study for evaluation and recommendations regarding how to reach a 75% countywide recycling goal, the impact and continued public ownership of a parcel of land, which is known as Alpha 250, would have what it would have on the said recycling goal and countywide solid waste disposal, and other general solid waste issues identified in the study. So I'm just going to complete what I'm going to say here, and then I'll get back to the slides. The final report summarized the Arcadis team's findings and recommendations, which include the following: an evaluation of the 3 different scenarios through which the 75% countywide recycling goal could be achieved or approached by 2025. One of the recommendations was that the Alpha 250 remain publicly owned, given its viability as a location for the development of certain solid waste processing facilities described in the final report. Recommendation was made that an independent special district be created as the governance structure for any established regional solid waste management system. And today we have this, to put it shortly, we have the Broward County Solid Waste Authority. And then there was a recommendation also that the solid waste processing facilities developed as part of the regional solid waste management system be based on public-private partnership ownership options. Okay. So we have to take a look at some of the facilities that we have currently. And one of them is the Reuters Recycling of Florida facility, which my friend Dean Richardson, who's here in the audience this evening, worked at. And he has provided me with a lot of useful and great information pertaining to that facility. It is one of the largest, or is the largest recycling facility in the southeastern United States. And we have Broward County, Miami-Dade, Monroe, and parts of Collier County bringing in cardboard, glass, aluminum, plastic, and other recyclables. When Dean was over at Reuters, they were producing compost, and some of the best compost in the country. And he mentioned to me that they were producing about 400,000 cubic yards of compost, rich compost, on an annual basis. And they sold out of this compost, and they didn't have enough. Next. So these are some pictures that I took of the current facility. As you can see, that we found out that they do have fires at this facility, where the fire department has to come out as well. Next. And Waste Management, which owns the facility, is also planning to build on a 12-acre parcel adjacent to the Reuter recycling facility, a 127,000 square foot recycling facility, state-of-the-art, which is technologically advanced recycling facility, and it will be the most technologically advanced recycling facility in the southeastern United States. Next. So let's talk about the Coconut Creek property that Waste Management owns. There was a Wheelabrator North, which was closed down, and it was agreed to by the county for them to close it down. And we also have the Monarch Hill landfill. That Wheelabrator waste to energy plant was demolished and cleared out. So they have about 24.6 acres of land that Waste Management now wants to expand the landfill. And actually just read that they want to go up about 10 stories higher than where they are right now. It's currently about 20 stories high. The expansion of this landfill has been opposed by the Coconut Creek city leaders and neighboring municipalities. There was supposed to be a vote by the Broward County Commission, and that was proposed. That was postponed and put off. I know that the Vice Mayor Sandy Welch has asked that they postpone any decisions on this property for at least a year until the Solid Waste Authority master plan is developed. Next. So we also have the Wheelabrator South, which is a waste to energy plant located close to Dania Beach, between Dania Beach and Davie. I actually used to live there in that area, and I developed lung issues because this plant was not too far away from me. I ended up having to look for a cleaner area, and that's how I ended up moving out to Southwest Ranches, so that I can get away from living near to an industrial plant like this. Well, lo and behold, the under consideration is the Broward County landfill, which is bordering the town of Southwest Ranches and Pembroke Pines. And, so here we are. I've left one area with an incinerator, and now I'm looking at them potentially building one right in my area. So I have to say that this is not about not wanting it in my backyard. I don't want this in anyone's backyard just because of the what I've experienced health-wise. So the Broward League of Cities is assisting the county with the process of developing the master plan. And there was a subcommittee set up called the Solid Waste Working Group. And they were the ones that commissioned the creation of the interlocal agreement, which was signed by about 28 municipalities. I think 3 of them did not sign, and that was Pembroke Pines, Allendale Beach, and I'm not sure if it's Lazy Lake or another small community. But so we have an executive committee. We have a governing board, and we have an executive committee and a technical advisory committee comprising elected officials and municipal staff. And right now we are moving along the process of hiring a new executive director. Actually, I believe he started on Monday. His name is Todd Storty. He's coming from California with lots of experience in the solid waste industry. And thankfully, he has a lot of experience in recycling, composting, and zero waste. So this is what we're looking forward to, is that we'll develop a zero waste plan and hopefully avoid having to build any incinerators anywhere in Broward County. Next.
And Richard, do you have about a minute left?
Sure. So if we can just go through some of the slides a little quicker. If you want to look up the Broward League of Cities, that's the website. You can get it later. We have engaged in designing posters and sharing that on our Facebook page, which is Broward Clean Air. I encourage everyone to join that page and follow it. There's a lot of useful information. And we also have, like for instance, Miramar had a meeting on April 12th, a city hall meeting, and a lot of residents showed up for that. They're trying to organize a group to go down to the Board of County Commissioners meeting when that comes up. Southwest Ranches is involved in holding monthly meetings. This was a trip that I took to San Francisco recently, and I went to the Recology Center, where they are recycling a lot of their trash and making it marketable products. They also have a learning center where people can go and learn about recycling and zero waste. And this was the group that I joined. Wonderful people from around the country and around the world. Everyone there is involved in some way in sustainability, resilience, and policy. The story of Stuff Project: communicators tell stories, share information that build our power, bring us closer together and closer to a better future. We are going to be film screening the Burning Injustice film, which exposes the devastating health consequences of incinerator pollution in California's Central Valley. This is the last incinerator that will be closed down in California. Next. And that's it. Here's my contact information, and I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Richard. We appreciate that presentation. And yeah, actually, if y'all know how to use your reaction button, or you want to drop in the comments, show love to Richard, Emma, and Brandy for presenting that wonderful information. We thank you and appreciate your valuable information and the experiences that you all shared. All right, yeah, so let's get into it. Like I said earlier, We want y'all to learn and learn and learn as much as you can, but we also want you to act. You know, we have the most incinerators in Florida, and you heard from the speakers, you know, how it impacts the health and our environment. So we want to make sure that we act on the things that we are learning. And so I'm going to pass it to Brian Lee with ReThink Energy, who can go into more details regarding the action that we would like you all to participate in.
Thanks, Mackenzie. Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming to this webinar. I know some of you have been to the first two, and I know that we've got some new people. So if you have been to one or the other of the first two, you may have taken action through using this QR code. This is the one that is to start a conversation with your local county commissioner. This is only Florida folks. I know we have some folks from out of state, but all I put in the database was Florida county commissioners. So if you use this QR code, it will take you to the Action Network, and it will let you email all of your county commissioners in your county to ask them to start a conversation about incineration. So if you were at one of the previous webinars, you may already have taken this first action. If you only took the first one, if you click on this same QR code, there's a link in that page that will take you to the second action. And the second action is if you took the first action and they didn't respond and you want to escalate a little bit and remind them that you wanted to talk about this, that's what the second action is. So I'll give you all a second to click on that. But what we have for tonight for everyone, whether or not you have taken the first action, this one is very simple. And you want to either use the QR code, or there's the tinyurl https://tinyurl.com/ all-caps no-fl-inc. That's no Florida incinerators. So you can also click on the link that I just dropped in the chat for that. And this is very simple. This is just a petition that is going to be sent where we need to send it. So as we move forward in this campaign, we will be looking at local governments, we'll be looking at state governments, we'll be looking at state legislators. So what we're going to do is build this petition up. We've got about 67 people here tonight, right now. Love it if everybody that's in Florida clicked on that. And then as we continue this campaign, we'll continue collecting signatures. And then you tell us when you've got a local incinerator issue that you're dealing with, you tell us. We'll get these signatures together and make sure that the local elected officials where you're fighting an incinerator fight know who is taking action here. So that's the action. Super easy to take. Just click the thing, fill in your contact info. It's got a few talking points to help educate you. And then the petition itself is just very short and sweet. It says that the UN General Assembly on Sustainable Development adopted internationally peer-reviewed and approved definition of zero waste, which does not recognize incineration as an acceptable method of solid waste disposal. Goes into a little bit of explanation and then says, as local governments develop plans for resilience, energy, and waste, we, the undersigned, urge you to take action towards advocating for and planning real zero waste strategies that do not include incineration. So that is the action. I hope everyone clicks on it and signs the petition and let me know, and we will move next into Q&A.
That is correct, Brian. Yeah. Yeah, please, if y'all have the time, please participate in this action. Copy the link, drop it in the family group chat, the other chats that you're a part of, send it to friends, families, and yeah, share out as much as you can. So yeah, we've entered into the Q&A session of this, all those questions, those burning questions that you had for each of the speakers. Now is the opportunity to do that. And how do we want to do this? Do we want to do whoever folks have their hand raised first, and then we can select from there? Is that yeah, let's do that. Yeah, if folks want to use the hand raising function in your chat, we can start off with questions, and feel free to, and yeah, if there and there should be some questions in the chat as well. I'll look through that as we do that. So okay. Sorry, I was not keeping track of all of these. So okay, I can start off with one. It's not in particular order, but I'll be sure to get those one for y'all. This is a question for Richard. Pembroke Pines does not offer recycling for residents any longer. Trash and recyclables are mixed together and sent to be incinerated. Do you know where that is being sent to be incinerated? Also, do you know of any changes for that area in regards to recovering recyclables? And that's a question for you, Richard.
Sure. I understand that I think Waste Connections is the name of the company that Pembroke Pines entered into an agreement with to handle their waste for the next 3 years. And they're not burning their waste. They're taking it up north to a landfill. So as far as the recyclables and what they intend to do, I know the newly elected mayor, Angelo Castillo, who is on the call with us this evening. I know that he's looking for solutions, and he's very open-minded to listening to what we're saying here tonight. So I think that this is a conversation that has to continue. I know that some folks believe that pyrolysis and gasification is a solution, and we're trying to share information and knowledge with all of our elected officials so that they can understand that this is a false solution, and that waste to energy, we don't prefer waste to energy. It's better that we landfill the materials that we have until we come up with viable zero waste solutions, which includes infrastructure. So I hope that I answered some of your question there, but I don't have all of the information about Pembroke Pines to give you. But if the mayor is willing to answer that question, I would like to pass that over to him.
And if he raises his hand, I'll be able to unmute if he's there and able to do it. But I need him to raise his hand.
All right. If not, we will pass it to Kyle Cornish. And yeah, feel free to see your hand raised, and feel free to Kim, if you can unmute Kyle and be able to so you can able to right.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, hi.
Hi, good evening. And I'm not sure what happened in the Zoom, but that is not actually my name. I'll have to to see, double check my Zoom settings or to see what happened there, but no less, I have a question. Anyhow, my name is Miss Martinez, and anyhow, I just want to also first thank everybody for their time and their efforts in trying to stand up for indeed our right to be able to live with, you know, clean air, water, and land to, you know, to work with. I am also a new budding farmer. And so this is definitely of interest. Basically my question is there any leeway to legally, or, you know, or any penalties, perhaps that could be given to landlords that do not, you know, that have bigger vicinities, to make sure that they incorporate recycling?
Can anyone, any of the speakers answer that question, or anyone want to answer that question, or do y'all need rephrasing?
Yeah, could you just
Push to, oh, go ahead, sorry.
I guess to better clarify, just, you know, wondering if there could be a subset of, you know, perhaps fines or penalties, be it, you know, for bigger set landlords, at least, you know, that have, you know, so many units, you know, that they do not actually pay for those services.
I will be honest with you, and I don't have an answer for that. That's something that I would have to research and get back to you on.
If you want to put your information in the chat, then maybe we can get back to you on that.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, Dean, you have your hands raised, and I see some of the questions in the chat. We'll be sure to get to that. But if you want to make sure that you know, looking through it, the comments are a bit crazy. So if you want to make sure that you get your questions answered, please raise your hand, and we'll allow you to speak when your turn is up to get that. But I'll do the best that I can to get those questions written down and answered. To pass it on to you, Dean.
Hey, there's a company with a new technology. It's not new, it just hasn't been used with municipal solid waste before. And it's going to take everybody involved to rethink their positions on what is recycling and what is zero waste. This company uses microwave technology to reduce MSW to its molecular level. Then they reconstitute it into new products. It is zero waste, zero emissions, nothing burned, nothing landfill, 100% of it is consumed. The cost to the taxpayers over the 30-year contract that that you sign with them, the cost of the taxpayers is zero. And it requires no upfront cost from the taxpayers. They pay for everything. They have a $10 billion investment fund that is beginning this groundbreaking technology. So I ask everybody to just open your minds. Every time you go in your kitchen in the morning, you probably have a microwave, and you put your coffee in there and you punch a button, and magically the microwave heats up your coffee without a flame or an electric burner or anything. It just heats it up. This is the same exact technology. It's used in many large corporations, and it's been used in many large corporations since microwave ovens have been around. So it's not new. It's just, this is the first time it's been applied to MSW. And it doesn't require any sorting. It doesn't require anything other than everybody throwing their trash into a garbage can, into a truck. The truck comes to them, they put it through their system. Now, for example, a lot of people would want to do composting. That's fine. Especially in Dade County, it'd be real easy to pull out all the green waste and send it to composting. They don't care. They make their money from the products they create. So they don't need your money. So when you see this coming down the pike, just open up your mind and rethink. It's just like the first time you saw if you were, none of you are old enough, but first time you saw a car, you said, what the hell is that? That's what this is.
Is there a question in there, Dean, or?
There's not really a question other than people need to have an open mind to new technologies. Horses going to cars, airplanes, things like that.
And Marcel, I don't know if you or Emma, I don't know if you want it, because yeah, I've heard some things about that technology, but I don't want to speak to it. So Emma or Marcel, if you want to speak to that before I pass it on to Angela Castillo.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to speak briefly on this and then pass it to whoever else wants to address it, but we don't perceive this to be a zero waste solution, nor microwaving to be like a miracle technology. So I from my understanding, that's not a possible solution, but I'm happy to pass that along to anyone else. I think you mentioned Marcel, and I don't want to put Richard on the spot, but it looked like he wanted to say something as well.
Marcel, do you want to go first? Oh, okay. Yeah, so I've spoken to Dean. I've spoken to Dean about this, and I've also been in contact with Ed Miranda, who is the marketing representative. And he is going to come out to our May 8th monthly meeting to give a presentation as well as answer questions, because there are a lot of questions about this technology that we should all be thinking about and asking. We just can't just accept something based on marketing and stuff like that. The technology has not been built here in the United States on that scale. I understand that it's utilized by Fortune 500 companies for their internal manufacturing processes, but we're talking about solid waste here, and we have 4 million tons of solid waste in Broward County alone. I have an open mind, and I would like to learn more about this. I understand that they're planning to open a plant facility in India, but how many of us are going to jump on a flight to go and see what's going on in India? We need, I know Miami-Dade refused it the first time because they said that there was no proof of concept. So we have to be careful with how we approach this. And I respect Dean very much, and I think that we should listen to what his advice is to have an open mind, but we have to go into it and ask as many questions as possible, just so that we don't fall into another problem down the road.
Thank you for that. Marcel, I don't know if you want to say something briefly before we unmute Angela Castillo, and then we'll get to the other hands raised. I see you, and I'll be sure to get to you all next.
Yeah, absolutely. I won't harp on this too much, but totally in agreement there, certainly from Emma as well. But I think, sort of putting the climate waste crisis in the hands of technology is sort of what has led us to these issues now of incinerators and chemical recycling, and the issues that we're directly talking about at this moment. So, I put a lot of caution towards these new technologies that have been the savior of these crises that don't really address the root cause of these crises. We're talking about overconsumption, single-use plastics and products, and packaging. We're talking about a throwaway society here. We're not talking about things that can be fixed simply through a technology, especially one that is untested, unproven, and is minimal in that regard. So I just always put caution towards the wider movement when it comes to these new technologies that may pop up in that regard. So I'll just leave it there, and I'll pass it back over to Mackenzie. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Kim, if you can unmute Angelo Castillo so he can.
Angela, I've been clicking on ask to unmute, so you have to click on the OK unmute.
See if we can give that a go.
Let me try one more thing and then suggest that you
Move on. Okay.
move
Yeah,
on.
yeah, Kim, if you can give that a go. So I'll actually just pass it on to Marsha, and then if we figure that out, you know, obviously want to hear from him, being an elected official. But yeah, Marsha, if you want to go for now, and then you know, whenever we figure that out, you can jump in. So yeah.
Able to, yeah,
Here we
because it
go.
was waiting for the host. Okay, so just a quick question, and this is about zero waste. A lot of people and avoiding plastics. So a lot of people are changing what they purchase and just changing to glass. And but now a lot of places in Florida, we don't recycle glass anymore. So it became a problem because then there is no, you know, what do people do with all the glass? I've learned about some solution in Flagler Beach that they purchase a machine just to process glass and change into sand and all that. Do you know of any other solution that is, you know, other counties are choosing to do, or what to do with the glass that is being now, you know, to avoid plastic? And now we have a lot of glass sending to and being sent to the landfills.
Did any of the speakers want to answer that? Or Neil, is that what you want to answer that? Oh, okay, yeah. And Kim, if you could unmute Neil, I think you'd like to give a crack at that. And please
Yes, thank you. There's very, very specific answers. There are several of them. Crushed glass is excellent for the local construction industry, and there are models across the country where counties invest in basically crushing and minor processing and sell their materials for foundational work. In construction trades, there are 3 other industries that need the glass. They depend on glass, and glass can be recycled infinitely. In making glass bottles, you could use up to 90% recycled glass. They only use 30%. They'd like to use more because it saves money on energy and wear and tear on the equipment. For every 100,000 tons of glass recycled, there are 2,000 jobs created throughout the country in industry. And it's a scandal that for the last 20 years, the major companies that manage MRFs, processing plants, have refused to recycle glass. They use it in their own landfills. And they're depriving the country of an incredible resource. And it lowers the energy and financial costs of the construction trade, bottle manufacturing, the insulation, and the sandblasting industry. I forget what that's called. And if I may talk another 30 seconds, even if you could, this magic machine works, and I've been looking at scenarios and descriptions of this technology for about 30 years, several of them coming from South Florida. When I think back of it, they've never been commercialized, so there's not much you can say about them. But my point is that if it did work, it wouldn't be worth it, because recycling, reducing, reuse, and composting are social activities. They're economic and they're environmental, but they're social, and they teach people how to act not only with nature, but with other people. The reuse and so forth, composting is a cooperative social activity, and it's happening all over the country. And that's what you lose. And one last thing I'll say is that we have a major crime crisis in the country. And one of the major symptoms of that is the recidivism rate. That is the number and times a person goes to jail, comes out, and goes back into jail. Well, reuse companies dealing with scrap, building deconstruction, so on. I could give you a list of these companies all across the country. They are reducing recidivism. They're taking people out of gangs and out of jail, showing them how to deconstruct and rebuild computers, how to take down buildings and rebuild buildings, et cetera, appliances and so forth. And they're not recycling materials, they're recycling people. People come out of this with a good job, a job that allows them to earn a decent living with benefits, health benefits, to raise a family and own a house. That's what you give up if you go to some magic technology. So I wouldn't waste my time looking at it, particularly if you're in government and your time is limited and you have to do other things. I would not waste my time. If there's a commercialized plant in India, let's take a look at it. But until then, let's stick with reduce, reuse, compost, and recycling.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, definitely want to change the culture. We want to create jobs, you know, and make sure that we're doing doing the best we can. Okay, I will pass it. Thank you, Neil, for that. I will pass it on to you, Marcia. Thank you for waiting so patiently.
Thank you.
And I am gonna just interrupt just a second here, and here's what I'm gonna do just to solve these problems of mute and unmute, which I did not mean to mean such a big deal. I am going to click on the button that will allow everyone to unmute themselves. It will tell you the host has asked you to unmute. And this is the main reason I haven't done it. Please don't everyone unmute. Continue to either raise your hand or but everybody, we're not asking everybody to unmute and have a lot of back and forth. So I'm going to do that now and then continue to let's let Mackenzie do the great job he's been doing of moderating. Thank you. Go ahead, Mackenzie.
Thank you, Kim. Doing my best here. Marcia, yes, please.
Yes, thank you. Hi, thanks for taking my question. So I feel like this is sort of my, hashtag Me Too moment where I talk about what a rough time we're having over in Lee County, recovering from Hurricane Ian and the 30 years worth of debris that was generated and the exceedances we had with dioxin and furon and our sense of optimism that there's a coalition that's built, but wanting to be a part of that and get some support so that we can understand a little bit better what's happening and not normalize what we're discovering and what we're finding out we're being exposed to over here. So I don't know what the plan is really going forward to be part of a group or to have like a running document of what we're discovering about exceedances, how normal it is, for there to be violations. And we're also coming to terms with discovering PFAS in the groundwater surrounding the construction and demolition landfill and those impacts. So, I just want to know if there's a way that we can be part of the group and work together to be able to find out who's testing what, get some testing done, what the results are, what the numbers are looking like. If there are some GIS, databases that I don't know about. I know there's the Hinckley Center out of University of Florida looks like it's kind of responsible for some of these solid waste issues. So if you guys could give me a little direction here, or I'll just say Mike Ewald of Energy Justice has been really awesome. Bradley Marshall as well. So as we try to chart these courses going forward, to get some direction and some connection with you guys would be great.
Yeah, no, thank you, Marsha, for your advocacy. Yeah, no, I think this is what we're here for, right? This is the purpose of this three-part series is not only learn, but identify what's going on in other communities, identify leaders in their community. You know, like I was familiar with Lee County, but I wasn't familiar with the people that are fighting the incinerators and the pollution that's happening in their communities. So thank you, thank you for bringing that up, and we'll continue having these conversations beyond this webinar series. That's why we're going to send a follow-up email. We'll have survey for you all to fill out, and so we'll definitely be in touch
Thank you.
collectively for sure. Yeah, no, I was in the same boat myself. Like we were like, with Florida Rising, we this is not something that we dealt with as far as like incineration and landfills, and we had a network of people to reach out to and connect with, and we got up to speed and were able to get a plethora of resources from Earth Justice, GAIA, and others, and so welcome to the crew. All right, thank you. So I will, Susan, I see your hand. Is it okay if we can get Mayor Castillo up? I know he's been waiting patiently, and then we can get to you next. Is that okay?
No, because Mayor Castillo is on my cell phone. I'm putting it
Okay.
on speakerphone so you can hear him because he literally could not unmute.
All right.
So we're hoping that this will work. And then when he's done, I'll ask my question.
Okay, two birds, one stone. Let's do this.
And we figured if we can get him to communicate with you all, then we can definitely tackle the solid waste crisis. That's what this is our bar. All right, go ahead, Angelo.
So I've literally, can everyone hear me? Susan, do you think they can hear me?
We have nods. Yes.
Okay, good. So I've literally been on, I don't know, a couple thousand Zooms, and I've never had this issue before, but I cannot unmute. And so I know that Kim has been trying desperately to do that, and I'd like you to all forgive whatever technical problem there is, but I have not been able to get it to work. So thank you, Susan, for putting me on the cell phone so I can communicate. Look, Pembroke Pines did not join this regional authority because they don't have a plan, and they wanted to tax the people of the city of Pembroke Pines not having a plan. And Broward County has a long history of just saying, "The heck with it, we'll burn it." And that's why we didn't join the county's a plan 30 years ago. We went off on our own. Pembroke Pines has never burned anything in the last 30 years. We've either recycled it or we've sent it to landfills. And our lament has never been recycling, or rather incineration. Our lament has always been that we're landfilling it, and we don't want a landfill. We believe in the 75% recycling solution. And I want to thank everybody who really cares about this issue and who's talked about it and who studied it and everything else. But here's the problem that we face as a group of environmentalists tackling a plan. We can't just say we dislike incineration, though we do, and we have good reason for it. We must propose solutions to that, or we're going to be called a bunch of complainers and bellyachers and tree huggers who don't have an answer and all of that other kind of language that is so often unfairly aimed at the environmental community. But in this case, we don't have clear solutions. And sometimes the solutions involve harm reduction. In other words, a process may not be the best, but it's better than the other one. And that's where I think our movement needs to go. It's not, we've made the point, don't burn. We've not made the point, instead do this. So we're talking about, we don't like the plastic recycling. Okay, we need to be real specific about which plastic recycling we like. We talk about composting, but it's not going to happen that every household puts a compost bin in their yard. That's just not going to happen. And so part of this is sort of also understanding human nature. And I'll tell you why. Not only is what I'm saying important, but it has urgency, because they're looking about, they're thinking about siting these facilities now. And once they push those buttons in government, it's very difficult to get them to unpush it. Very, very difficult. So We need to start talking about solutions, things that work, alternatives that can be sold, that can be costed out, that can be compared on a spreadsheet, so that these governments can start thinking about not doing the recycling. Now in Pembroke Pines, you don't have to worry. We're 100, but we've always been against incineration. So we don't like sending our stuff to be burned. And we have that history. And we haven't joined the regional authority because they've yet to say we're not about incineration. So we weren't going to have our people taxed until they had a plan that made sense to us. So that's basically the answer to the question. In terms of the Reuter Center and its expansion into recycling, we're believers in recycling. The county has had years and years and years to build a recycling facility that's capable of extruding recyclable plastics into new products. And they haven't built it yet. We keep talking about it, but it's not been built. So I think that some of this has to start, the plane needs to come in for a landing on a number of very, very key issues. When are we going to build the recycling facility? What specific processes are we advocating for? Which types of recycling do we support? Against which do we not support? If we don't have an answer to the large scale problems, which processes are harm reduction for now, and then we'll work on them sort of later on. And I really, really encourage us to turn in that sort of practical, utilitarian sort of direction, because otherwise we're going to end up with incinerators, and that would break all of our hearts. So I don't know if there are any further questions along those lines, but as someone who believes in this movement and who's so thankful to each of you for everything that you do, that's my best advice. That's 40 years of government executive advice coming at you. Come up with a solution or we're going to lose.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
And before you get started, Susan, I know we are at 8:02. I want to respect everyone's times, but also want to respect the speakers. So Susan, if you and Mary, I saw the final two hands up. If you want to ask your questions, please do. But please be brief with the questions and the response so that we respect everybody's times.
Thank you. I was basically going to echo exactly what Angelo said, what Mayor Castillo said. I was going to say we are living in a real world situation and we are in Florida. We must remember that we will have restrictions on what we're allowed and not allowed to do. And we may have to choose the lesser of three evils, but we've got to do it and do it intelligently. And that's it. So thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you. And again, sorry, everyone. I know there's folks that still have some questions and comments that they would like to say. I appreciate the energy and the conversation when we talk about waste. For now, we'll pass it. The last question will be Mary's, and then afterward we'll have to wrap, unfortunately, because we want to make sure we respect everyone's time. So Mary, if you want to go ahead and ask your questions, and then after that I'll do a final closing, and then we'll go about the rest of our day.
Thank you. I wanted to thank Angelo. He's been our wonderful new mayor, and I can't thank him enough for all his advice, information. He's just fantastic. Thank you, Angelo. My question is for Emma. Just a day or so ago in Miami, the Arcadis people were asked to do a study as to the effects of they have 3 incinerator sites that they're looking at. One is very close to where I live. It's near Miramar, Florida, which Richard mentioned. It's near Pembroke Pines. It's near the Reuters recycling too. Emma, that report said that, and they've just passed it on to Miami-Dade. The report said that, if I can quote it here, if I can find it, it's concluded that the facility within the county sites will be challenging. Anyway, what they said here, wait a minute. Yeah, here's what they said. What they were doing, they were testing to see if it would affect Miramar. If they built an incinerator at the Opelika West site, which is near Miramar, would it be a health risk to the people? And Arcadis says that the sites that the Miami-Dade's talking about have low risks with results within or below the regulatory established risk levels. Estimating the worst case health risk level at all three sites is below the risk posed by simply walking down the street and inhaling car exhaust. Now, I'm just wondering what Emma thinks of that conclusion.
No pressure, right?
I mean, that's just unbelievable. We all know it's not true. But that was their report to Miami-Dade. The meeting is May 7th. Miami-Dade is having the vote September 4th.
First of all, thank you for raising that because I was familiar with the Arcadis report and that study being done, but I wasn't familiar that it had progressed another stage. So I really appreciate you raising that. I'm going to give a quick response and then pass it along to my colleague Bradley. But I would have to also agree with some responses that think that this is not a feasible comparison to draw here, and that these scenarios that we model don't take into consideration the exceedances that occur regularly. And I know it doesn't really answer the question. That's my opinion, but I will pass it next to Bradley.
I
mean, so in my mind, I haven't seen this report yet, so I would like to read it before offering a full opinion. I'm Bradley Marshall. I work with Emma. I'm an attorney with Earth Justice based in Tallahassee, Florida. But you have to remember that basically every facility that is constructed and bringing up pollution and destroying their communities has had reports like this. I mean, this is what these consultants do, is that they write reports, they model everything working perfectly well, all the best pollution control technology, and it doing everything it should and having perfect operation. And then, if everything works perfectly as it's perfectly able to do and never malfunctions and never start up, never shut down the facility, and it just runs out of baseline, then yeah, models show that it's not going to destroy the community. And especially when you don't take into account all the other things that are going into the community, the cumulative impacts, the fact that things do malfunction, the fact that these things are operated by people after all, and people are flawed. And then you do have a bunch of pollution episodes. The Doral incinerator was not, was not supposed to catch on fire and have all those pollution spikes into the community, and yet it did, because people are responsible for operating it. And so that would be my initial response about having read that report.
Thank you. I was very sad to hear about that report. And I also want to add, it might just take a lithium battery to burn the whole place down.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, everyone else who wanted to be able to speak. I apologize. We ran out of time. Everyone was really engaged and intrigued in this conversations. But like I said, hopefully this isn't the last conversations that we'll be having with everyone across the state. Again, thank you all so much for coming, for attending. We'll have the 3 presentation recordings available for you all, and the presentations in a follow-up email. And included in that will be a 5-minute survey. For folks that attended, we would love your feedback. And again, thank you all for your engagement, your questions. Again, thank you to the speakers for coming out and speaking. And yes, thank you all. I think that's it. That's it. That's a wrap. Have a good night, folks.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. Appreciate your speaking. That was great.
I appreciate y'all.
Coming all the way to Florida for